Are you abused? Are you happy when you are being abusive to someone? Why do we need to abuse? Is it happy when you abuse? Why there are people keeping abusing? We all know that child abuse is very serious and very broad issue in our society, right? It is quite spreading over the years. It is about time to stop. But how? Child abuse or child maltreatment is physical, sexual, or psychological maltreatment and neglect of a child or children, especially by a parent or a caregiver. Child abuse may include any act or failure to act by a parent or a caregiver that results in actual or potential harm to a child and can occur in a child's home or in the organizations, school, or communities the child interacts with. Child abuse remains a significant problem in the world. The reasons for child abuse are diverse and tend to be different from a situation to another. It is found that children of different disabilities such as hearing, learning, and visual impairment and the higher risk of being abused especially from their caregivers. Another cause of low economic status and high social stress which lead some people to abuse drug and alcohol. Hence, the severity of alcoholism and drug abuse increase. The tendency to abuse others increases as well. Also, it is clear that children or young ages are more likely to be abused by males than elder children who are abused more by males. Moreover, the abusing childhood experience can be cause for an adult to abuse children, especially if this adult suffered rejection, maltreatment, and violence in his or her childhood. The end of child abuse can be shown as physical effect which range from minor injuries to severe brain damage and even death. Another effect is the psychological manifestation where the child may have low self-esteem and depression. Child abuse is a major public health crisis. It affects children of all ages, colors, social classes, and ethnic groups. The latest statistics estimate that more than 900,000 children are victims of child maltreatment. Abuse occurs at all ages, but is most common in younger children. Child abuse as skin injuries, skeletal trauma, or many other forms by Tenisuero and Wilson 2004. According to the Republic Act 7610, also known as Special Protection of Children Against Abuse, Exploitation and Discrimination Act, an act providing for stronger deterrence and special protection against child abuse, exploitation, and discrimination, providing penalties for its violation from other purposes. The World Health Organization distinguishes four types of child maltreatment: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, and neglect. According to our resource, our school head, Sir Esperidion Oliagas, child abuse. What can you say about child abuse, sir?
Well, child abuse, as what you're asking, this child abuse meaning that is physical abuse, and there are lots of types of abuse. No, there are physical, there are sexual, and there are emotional abuse. So I would like to explain this one by one. This emotional abuse, when you hurt someone, especially when you are saying bad words, no, like for example, you're a bobo.
Yes,
So
sir.
that is emotional abuse. You are not good in the class, or else you are not beautiful, you are ugly. So that is a part of abuse. That is one way of abuses. Now then, there are psychological abuse. This psychological abuse, they refers to the abuse in mind. Like for example, no, when you are producing any psychological abuse, when you say that person is not bright, no, is not intelligent, and then you keep on saying that words in front of your classmates or anyone else that may hear your voice, that is psychological abuse. Then sexual abuse, no, especially as of this time in our social media, we can see a lot of reports in the television, no, that there are children who are abused by their parents and of course to their peers, to their partners or their friends in the group. So that is sexual abuse. Then we have the so-called physical abuse. When you beat someone, pagpapaluin mo yan, that is abuse. No? When you hit someone or when you jab at her or his face to your knuckle, that is a physical abuse. No? So did you get me, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Then this abuse really hurts someone and this embarrass anyone. So this child abuse is punishable by law, especially if the person who commit that abuse is uh, above 18 years old. No? So that kind of abuse is very illegal, that is improper. And another is that abuse is improper practice. So when someone is used to do that things, no, naadan na siya himo-himo ana nga katakag pang istorya, mga bad words uttered, then hit someone, nanipa, and anything that can harm, so that is part of abuse, so child abuse. Then regarding to parents, they have also committed this abuse. When parents cannot give the needs of the children, that is abuse, no, based upon the lessons that we have delivered, no, when you were in grade 1, you know already that when your need could not when you could not be provided by your parents, that is totally abuse, no. So any other question, Dave?
None, sir.
So if there is none, I think I have answered all your questions. So thank you so much for the interview. A very nice interview together with your classmates.
Physical abuse. Among professionals and the general public, there is disagreement as to what behaviors constitute physical abuse of a child. Physical abuse often does not occur in isolation, but as a part of oscillation behavior including authoritarian control, anxiety, provoking behavior, and the lack of parental warmth. The WHO defines physical abuse as intentional use of physical force against the child that result in or has a high likelihood of resulting in harm for a child's health, survival, development, or dignity. This includes hitting, beating, kicking, shaking, biting, strangling, scalding, burning, poisoning, suffocating. Much physical violence against children in home is inflicted with the object of punishing. Abuse. Child sexual abuse or CSA is a form of child abuse in which an adult or older adolescent abuses a child for sexual stimulation. Sexual abuse refers to participation in a sexual act aimed towards the physical gratification or the financial profit of the person committing the act. Forms of CSA include asking or pressuring a child to engage in sexual activities, regardless of the outcome. Incident exposure of the genitals to a child, displaying pornography to a child, actual sexual contact with a child, and etc. There are a lot of effects of child sexual abuse on the victims, include guilt and self-blames, flashbacks, nightmares, insomnia, fear of things associated with the abuse, including object smells, places, doctor's visit, and etc. Self-esteem, difficulties, sexual dysfunction, chronic pain, self-injury, suicidal ideation, somatic complaints, depression, post-traumatic disorders, anxiety, other mental illnesses, including borderline personality disorder, and dissociative identity disorder, propensity, disvictimization, in adulthood, bulimia nervosa, physical injury to the child, among other problems. Psychological abuse. There are multiple definitions of child psychological abuse. In 2003, the American Psychiatric Association or EPA added child psychological abuse to the DSM-5, describing it as non-accidental verbal or symbolic act by a child or parent or caregiver that result or have reasonable potential to result in significant psychological harm to the child. In 1995, APSAC defined it as spurning, terrorizing, isolating, exploiting, corrupting, denying emotional responsiveness, or neglect, or as repeated pattern of caregiver behavioral extreme incidents that convey to child that they worthless, flawed, unloved, unwanted, endangered, or only value in meeting another's needs. Victims of emotional abuse may react by distancing themselves from the abuser, internalizing the abuse word, or fighting back by insulting the abuser. Emotional abuse can result in abnormal or disrupting attachment development, tendency for victims to blame themselves or self-blame for the abuse, learned helplessness, and overly passive. Child abuse can also result in immediate the adverse physical effect. It is also strongly associated with developmental problems and with many chronic physical and psychological effects, including subsequent ill health, including higher rates, chronic condition, high-risk health behaviors, and shortened lifespan. To begin with, there are several causes that lead to child abuse and neglect. First of all, children with physical and disabilities, visual and hearing impairments, low birth weights, and physical health problems are slightly increased high of being physically abused. Why we need to abuse the child? We don't need to abuse anyone because we are all made by God. We are all the same. No selected, no favored. According to Dr. Sanchenko, Ring the Bell of Hope in 1996. Let us ring the bell of hope that child abuse will stop spreading and not to continue to ruin our future as a child. I speak to you right now to stop child abuse because we people are the instrument to stop it. And the slogan of the youth is live life to the fullest. Start look in our environment. Stop child abuse. Listen in our society. Stop child abuse. Preventing child abuse is not simply a matter of parents doing a better job, but rather it is about creating a context in which doing better is easier. Enlightened public policy and replication of high-quality policy. Supported interventions are only part of what is needed to successfully combat child abuse. It remains important to remind the public that child abuse and neglect are serious threats to a child's healthy development, and that overt violence toward children and the persistence of lack attention of their care and supervision are unacceptable. Individuals have the ability to accept personal responsibility for reducing acts of child abuse and neglect by providing support to each other and offering protection to all children within the family and their community. As sociologist Robert Woodnow has noted, every volunteer effort or act of compassion finds its justification not in offering solution society's problem but in offering hope, both that the good society we envision the possible that every act of helping each other give us strength and a common destiny. Both now, 1999, 304. When the problem is owned by all individuals, the community's prevention will progress and fewer children will remain at risk.